Welcome into Big Hitters Only, another special podcast, different than your UNC talk. We're going to do another marathon podcast as Alan's computer screen goes crazy there. We're bringing on Joseph McCaffery and Alan Baddour, two veteran marathon runners, maybe one more veteran than the other, ahead of my marathon on October 27th. That's Sunday. This podcast is probably coming out Monday, so we're going to be less than a week from the marathon when you hear this. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend if you like the content, tell a friend, tell them to go on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and subscribe and follow this podcast. We're trying to grow this. All right, this is going to be a little more expert level prep. And I sent these guys a list. Alan, actually, let me just introduce y'all. So Alan is a buddy of mine from Chapel Hill. You might recognize the last name. His dad was athletic director at UNC. But you've done how many marathons? Give us your kind of running experience so people know what we're working with here.
Ooh, great question. Don't know the answer to that, which means it's a lot, but I would say 45 marathons, a couple ultras, a bunch of halves, and then shorter distances as well. The only other, I think, aspect that I think people find interesting is I did not run in high school or college. So my experience started in post-college Washington, D.C. out of boredom.
And how many different continents have you done marathons on?
3?
Australia being the most recent, right?
Correct. Barely. Which maybe, yeah. Go ahead. Maybe we'll talk about it, maybe not. But not a great day for me. But I guess the beauty of doing more than one is all your eggs are not in that one basket. And when you don't have a great race, you just come back and try again.
And describe an ultra so people can kind of know what that is and what those distances were.
Ultra is actually literally anything over 26.2 miles. So I have done a 40 miler, the Uwari trail race, and I've done, I think, twice what was officially a triple half marathon, so 39.3 miles in Defusky Island in South Carolina near Hilton Head.
Very cool.
So very different experiences.
Alan lives in Chapel Hill, just for maybe a training reference point. Joseph McCaffery, we call him Sweats, resides in Durham. I'm just gonna call you Sweats. Sweats, give us your breakdown of your marathon experience, your running experience. I know you've done some other stuff as well.
Yeah, so I've done. I'll work backwards, which is easier for me. I've done in the past 4 years. I've done 9 marathons. I've done about in that time frame about 15 half marathons, and a bunch of shorter distances as well. Before then, I was really into Go Ruck events, which is a different animal. It's a team-based, team building endurance event. And so I did, probably 15 of those for a few years. Before that, I did, I think, 11 Spartan races, as well as one ultra, which was 32 miles. So that takes us back to probably 2015. And before then, I did not run at all. I thought it was very bad for you. And all I did was, I did CrossFit, I lifted. Occasionally I would dabble in, a community race, pretty short distances. And so from then, until college, I didn't do any competitive or weekend warrior running. I was a collegiate wrestler, and so I wrestled through college, coached for a few years afterwards. So that's sort of I've come to the sport as many people do, in a haphazard manner, um, which it gives you different strengths, it gives you different weaknesses that you just have to build around.
Yeah, I think running is, as we get older, team sports become harder to be a part of, just as hard to get everybody together to play basketball or to play soccer. So I'm not sure if the individual aspect of marathons and running is kind of what y'all have enjoyed or kind of had the default kind of moved into. Like I'm the same way. Like I am a basketball, soccer, volleyball. I love those sports growing up, and now I just kind of to exercise. I run or lift weights or go to F3 stuff. So it is interesting how both of y'all are doing marathons, but you didn't start running until way past college.
Well, and I'll follow up on that just to say one more word, which is that the whole reason I started running in Washington D.C. is in high school and college. I was a good athlete. I was never a great athlete, meaning I could handle my own in anything, but I was no one's first pick. So I was playing basketball and ultimate frisbee and everything in high school and college. And then I got up to DC, and at 5 o'clock, when you're living even with a group of guys in DC, it's pretty hard to find a pickup basketball game or whatever else. And I just got bored of sitting around the house all the time. So I was basically like, let me try this running thing. I don't know what it is, but and then did a couple marathons. I was only there for a year, came back to Carolina for law school and ran a couple marathons in law school as a way to not be studying all the time because I am not that kind of an academic. So yeah, I totally agree with you that running, I think a lot of people's entrance into running can be a solo necessity. But what I would also say is that the flip is probably the most sort of uh, it's not the way you think about running, but the most kind of compelling aspect of running is the group aspect of it. And what I mean is not that you're entering into team events, but that you're going on runs with people. And that no one can do that every day or probably even wants to do that every day. But I mean, as a general rule, most people get more out of a pub run or hey, you and you meet me Wednesday morning at 8 and let's go run 3 miles, 8 miles, 10 miles, or the long run or the workout. We may talk about this later, but 100% of people work out better with other people around. You just perform better because you're in that environment with other people. And so there's the performance component of group running, and then there's the social component of group running. But you also have to start from, if you can never run on your own, you're not going to really get but so far running because no one can have a group to run with every day. I mean, it's just too hard as adults.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree with Alan. Your performance when you're competing and just having fun, um, it just makes this all more enjoyable. I mean, the more you do it, the more you think about why you're doing it, and you question why you're doing it quite a bit. And the numbers are never going to be good enough. The numbers will never be good enough for a lot of people. For me, the numbers are never going to be good enough. I'm always going to want a faster time, and hopefully, those will be in my future. But along the way, you have to have something that keeps you there. And I agree. I mean, running with people, ton of fun. You get to know people. You're staring straight ahead, so you can really kind of open up sometimes, which is nice. Um, the other aspect of it, which is kind of how I got into it, is actually during COVID. It shut down a lot of activities. So I was just like, okay, go outside. Which direction? How far? How fast? And it's not like you're having these epiphanies when you're running, but you just get, it's the only time of day for me when I can be, if I want to be, completely alone. It's the only time. And so it's meditative. You can kind of just kind of hear what's going on a little bit better. It's not like you're solving anything, but it's kind of a nice primer for the day too. It just kind of gives you some time by yourself to kind of think about what you have to do, what's coming up. So if you're not, benefiting from that social aspect, there's still a lot of value in that individual aspect of it as well.
Yeah, the meditative stuff I love. Like it's just you're by yourself. You get to think. You get to think. Get your mind wanders, and you can solve some problems. You can think about what's going on in your personal life, work, career, or you can just use it. I use it as a great way to relax. I mean, get away from stuff, and also it's so easy. You just you don't need you need a pair of shoes and shorts and just go. It's very easy to do it, and you can do it anywhere. I love it to explore cities, to explore different towns, different areas. Hey, I'm gonna learn about this neighborhood. I'm gonna learn about this neighborhood. I'm gonna learn about this New York City, San Francisco by just running. And I've done that so many times just to see different cities. And you see the world wake up in the morning. I love that, man. You're working hard in the morning. I think most of us do a lot of runs in the morning. Like you feel like when you don't see anybody, like, man, I'm the only person out here. You get miles in the dark, Alan.
Yeah, unless you're seeing the people coming home from the formal at 4:30 a.m., which in a college
Yeah.
campus,
I just
duh,
played that game in Vegas.
I
I
mean
was
it's
running
Yeah, yeah.
early in Vegas, and I was like,
it's pretty
"Who's
funny.
running and who's coming home from the clubs?"
Right.
It was
She's
pretty,
got her
yeah.
shoes in her hands and she's walking back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's get on. That's kind of like a romantic little vision of running there to start the show. I probably could be better at the end because I want to talk about marathon prep. I have a marathon in it's Thursday, so what? 10 days. 10 days from today. And I've never done one. This is my first marathon, and I've been consistently training. I'm not trying to break any, land records here. I've got a certain pace in mind. I'm not worried about my time or anything, but I want to know starting today, like what I need to be doing in terms of my tapering and diet prep and what I should be thinking about leading up to the race. Let's start there. And should I be running more? Should I be running less? What should my long run be? I did 10 miles yesterday. Should I stop there? Walk me through up until Sunday, and then we'll get into, as I pull up our notes here, kind of race day and into the race. I want to hear what you would suggest for me and kind of what y'all do. And I'll lead y'all there. But starting today, tapering, paint the picture, Alan.
Okay, so the good news or the bad news is you are done improving. You will
Yep.
gain no more improvement 10 days out. In other words, the other way to say it is the workout today you'll see some result on that 10 days from now. So um, the other way to frame that is there is no work when you have a choice between doing hard work or resting and prepping. The choice is rest. It is not work. Always. If you are tired, if you find yourself working late, overworked, should I get up early? The answer is no. Sleep in. If it means you don't run that day, do not run that day. That's true for this last 10 days, the whole way through. Now, that said, it would be a mistake to not run at all. I'm not, taper does not mean shut it down. But the general idea is that you're, roughly 20% or so fewer miles um, the 2 weeks before the race, and then roughly 10 or 20% fewer miles the week before the race. So it's not down to zero. And the other thing is if you're, and I don't really know what your whole cycle's been like, and so I'm not asking, I wouldn't suggest you start something new, but for those who are doing, let's say, a speed workout, you would still do a speed workout. And in other words, you don't take the speed down, you take the reps down. You want to reduce the volume of that speed work, but not necessarily the intensity. You may bring the intensity down a little bit. You wouldn't want to be doing, hundreds of or whatever, dozens of 400s at interval pace. You would want to be doing more marathon pace stuff and less of it. So, I mean, that's a general, and of course, you're going to build in. Again, I don't know your specific cycle, but if on a weekly basis, to pick a number, you have one rest day, two rest days, I don't know. You might add a third 2 weeks out, and you might add a third or fourth the 1 week out. So you are adding in some more rest, you're reducing your volume, and you're reducing your intensity. But you're not cutting, you're reducing the length of your intensity, not necessarily the actual intensity.
Now, why is speed work important to keep doing? Like, what is that benefiting me? How's that benefiting me?
Well, it's not that it's benefiting you from a perspective of performance. It's more just keeping you sharp. They talk about
Okay.
sharpening when they talk about racing. So, for example, some people I have racing in 2 weeks. This week they did on their speed day. They did some marathon miles, which is a little slow for a speed day, and some 400s. Next week, they may do something like 6 by 600, which is a pretty short workout. That's my go-to workout. Another one I've sort of at an interval pace, not a marathon pace, but an interval pace, so faster than marathon pace. I have been toying recently with changing that to marathon pace work. But the idea is that your body, your muscles, you remember how to run fast. You don't completely forget that component of the work because it's what you're going to need to do, and you're probably going to be asking your body to do it right at the start line because at a race like aren't you doing
Marine Corps.
GC, yeah, Marine Corps. Like it's not a community race where you can go out and run 2 miles warm up, 1 mile warm up, and then hop in the start line. You're going to have to be locked into the start line, shivering, and so there's no warm up. You're just going to start, and so your muscles have to kind of be ready on some level to just hit it, and you'll warm up into the race. We'll talk about the race later, but um, you, the idea is sharpening, I guess, is the short answer.
Okay, Sweats. Any kind of you want to kind
Yeah,
of build on that and what your advice would be?
yeah. The biggest challenge of a marathon in many ways is getting to the start line healthy. And 2 weeks out, you should not be a hero. Um, there's all the physical sharpening that Alan talked about, which is 100% right on the money, but there's also mental sharpening. You've got to trust in your training. The last 2 weeks can be really challenging for people mentally because you're not doing the same workouts, you're not doing the same volume, and you're wondering, can I do this? And you're wondering, am I getting out of shape? Because that run felt hard. And am
Yeah.
I going to be able to run at my marathon pace for 26.2 miles? Because that run just felt hard and now I'm in my head. So there's a lot of mental sharpening where you really need to kind of stay dialed into, faith in your training, stay dialed into getting to bed on time, getting great rest every night, get as much sleep as possible, undisturbed by children if possible, but certainly alcohol. Let's leave that out for the final 2 weeks. Keep doing what you're doing nutrition wise. Don't overthink it. Don't do anything radically different, and then in the final 2 weeks and think it's going to matter on race day. The hay is in the barn.
Yeah.
What you've done physically and nutrition wise is not going to change materially in the final 2 weeks. So you need to focus on landing the plane. Let's make sure we land it in one piece and get to the start line healthy. Have faith in the training you've done. You already had a chance to do it. It's over with. Right now, you're just kind of, you want to stay sharp, be ready to go, and be rested and fired up mentally to go when the race gets there. So the last 2 weeks for me are challenging because it's hard to get up for even an easy run. Let's say you've got an easy 6 or an easy 7. It's like, man, like there's nothing to get up for, right? There's nothing to get excited for, but you just have to remember that the finish line is close, and you want to stay, really just focused on running that race as best as you can, and not making any silly changes to variables that aren't going to matter on race day.
Sweats, can you wipe
Mhm.
your video screen real quick and just see if yours a little blurry? Just
While
wipe
that's
it.
Sure.
happening, I'll jump in and say this. I
Is
couldn't
that
agree
better?
more with everything you said.
Yeah,
But
you're good.
what I would say as well is that I have to acknowledge it can be hard to trust the training because for fall marathons, a lot of the training took place in the summer. And we are
Yeah.
creatures of numbers. And you look at your paces or your reps or your whatever it is, metrics you care about, and it's hard to see evidence of improvement or, sustained endurance or ability, kind of the needle moving in August. But, we've had, if you're around here, you've had a week or two, better weather, hopefully you saw a little bit, things felt easier, things felt smoother. But everything Joe said is correct, and it is just abundantly true that you will run. Let's see how to say it. You can't extrapolate from any running you're doing in the last 2 weeks about how the race is going to go. These runs can be crappy, and you can have a great race. These runs can feel good, and you can have a bad race. Unfortunately, it is not a 1-to-1.
Yeah, and to speak on what Sweat said earlier about, and you said like the bad runs. Like I ran 10 yesterday. I didn't feel great during the 10. Now my pace was decent. I just didn't feel good, and I felt a lot better on like a 15 or even a 20 that I did, 4 weeks ago. So I'm like, getting in my head, like you said, getting in your head a little bit. Like, damn, am I ready? I did like, I tailgated last weekend. I tailgated the weekend before. My diet and sleep and alcohol consumption has not been what I would prefer to have had. I've kind of shut it down now. So I am a little bit like, I just mentally hope that the 20 miles, the two 20-mile runs I did can float me. And I did them probably 6 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago. Can float me into this one. So I have I have no problem tapering. I have no problem like resting. And so like, all right, let's get a little detailed here. Like, all right, so 10 miles yesterday, that was on Wednesday. I'm thinking like I'm gonna do 3 today, maybe 3 today and a little bit of speed work, and then a long run on Saturday or Sunday, and then kind of shut it down and just go like 3, 6, 4, kind of those medium range runs the week of. Like, how would you kind of lay it out for me? Now, my mileage has not been, I've probably been doing 35, 40 a week at peak training. Maybe a little bit more, but my peak training was probably, around that 35, 40 range, if that. So any detailed advice? Should I do a long run Saturday, Sunday? I guess is kind of one of my main focus there.
I'll jump in. I mean, I think running, 10 to 12
Okay.
is reasonable. So yeah, I would do that. And then it's hard to say like precisely. None of those numbers you said shock me, so I guess they're all in the right ballpark. I would, be sure to take a rest day or two this week, and the same with next week, especially. And then I guess the only other thing I would say is that can be counterintuitive to some people early in their sort of career of marathon running. I would run, a shakeout the day before the race. Ideal in a perfect world, you get to the locate, you get to DC, then shakeout. Like, and I mean like
Mm-hmm.
3 mile easy run the day before the race, but rest the day before that.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of people want to rest the day before the race. And I think it's just good to get a little blood flow and a little bit of movement happening. Not, again, nothing that's going to tax you. If you wanted to do a couple strides, at the end of that, you could, but you don't have to.
Is stride sprints?
So, yeah, so the strides would be a 10 to 15-second burst of not
Okay.
100%, but let's say 75 to 85% for, yeah,
Mhm.
again, 10 to 15 seconds. And you could do whatever, 6, you could do 3 and do none. I mean,
Yeah,
Cool. So
I agree. I mean, the other, it's, you don't want to put your foot into it on any of these runs coming up, necessarily. Like if you do the 10 to 12, as Alan suggested, you know, um, nice and easy and smooth,
okay.
don't feel the need to hit a certain pace 1 week out. And, and especially, when you're doing, some of the runs next week, you just kind of ignore how your body feels and just know that you're there.
Okay.
um and whether it's 4 or 6 one day, make sure you have at least one rest day before that shakeout run. You could have even 2 rest days if you wanted, depending on how your body feels. But I like to have 2 rest days sometimes that week leading up to the marathon, just because I want to make sure that I'm ready to go and then I'm not overdoing it at all. And you want
Yeah.
to, you want to replenish glycogen and be hydrated for the race, right? You don't want to like tax yourself so that you're getting dehydrated and you're fighting that battle at the same time as you're trying to kind of, go, hit that start line with a full tank.
Yeah. So I think the shakeout run is something I didn't really think about, but yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that Saturday. We get in there Saturday morning, get the bib and everything. Run Saturday, 2 or 3 miles, and then so I'll rest Thursday and Friday. Got a massage on Tuesday as we work back in. So I'll do a long run Saturday or Sunday, run Monday, maybe some speed work on Tuesday, and then do the massage, and then Wednesday to see what happens on Wednesday. I was thinking.
Rest on Wednesday and rest on Thursday. Well, you want to rest on,
Runs on
no,
the marathon's on Sunday.
yeah,
The
yeah,
marathon's
Sunday.
on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
rest
Yeah.
on Wednesday and Friday then.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Diet.
Let me just say this one
Go
other
ahead.
thing too. And this is true the whole cycle. The next today's workout is, or today's run. Let me say that today's run is not about fixing what went wrong yesterday. So if you think you had a bad run or a bad workout or a bad whatever yesterday, don't try to fix it by running faster today. If today was supposed to be easy, run easy today. And so likewise, like if you're not feeling good in your run yesterday or that 10-mile run, don't try to do more speed or do more of this. Just it's gone. It Today's run is about, what's the goal of today's run? An easy run, blood flow, flushing. Okay, great. So let's solve today, because you know why? Because then tomorrow when that little burst of speed work happens or when the race is coming, I'm more prepared for that. I haven't, as Joe's just talking about, I haven't gone to the well. I'm not dehydrated. I'm not under fuel. Anyway, so you want to talk about fuel. I, I agree with
Well,
Joe. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll set you up there. So I think y'all would be surprised to know that I haven't followed a schedule at all. I know that blow your mind, Alan.
Yeah, it
I have
does.
not
It
done
does.
it, and I know like people listening, like Patrick O'Shea and Griffin, who are very locked in the schedule. I haven't followed a schedule. I've done it all by feel, and I've kind of leaned on Patrick O'Shea and Griffin, who were previously on the podcast, to kind of get a schedule going. But I just couldn't. It just can't be that structured. I mean, I need to bet better. That's hard. It's hard to follow a
My
schedule like
man's a
that.
free spirit.
Yeah, it's all been feel. I just
It's
made sure I had
freestyling out there.
yeah, made sure. Maybe I'll do. I don't know. I've told myself this is gonna be my first and my last marathon, but I don't know. It's kind of. It's a test of a lot of things of who you are as a man and like your structure of your life and scheduling and stuff. It's really cool to see how your body reacts to it. Yeah. So let's talk about diet into this week. I'm a pretty healthy guy. But was there anything you would add this week diet-wise? Just focus more on hydration, maybe get some fruits and vegetables in. Is there anything you changed the week of 10 days out diet-wise other than just like maybe not eating fried foods and not drinking? Is there anything you would add?
I, Joe kind of nailed it earlier, and I want to let him take the lead on this. But what I would say is the most important day for food, hydration, and sleep is not the night before the race, but 2 nights before the race.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Joe take it from there.
Well, I agree with that. And really it's the week leading up to the race as well. If you expect to just chug jugs of water on the Saturday before your Sunday race, that's not going to work because you're optimizing. You need longer than a day to optimize for this, what you're going to put your body through on Sunday. And so really that final week, don't do anything different. I've asked a lot of people this question, a lot of really experienced marathoners. What do you eat the night before? What do you eat 2 nights before? What's the perfect pre-race meal? And I got this amazing response one time from a guy who's a really good marathoner. He's like, I do what I always do. I have a cheeseburger and fries, and I have 2 glasses of wine so I can sleep. He's a really good marathoner. Now, I don't recommend that necessarily, but you're getting, you want to make sure that you're getting good carbs. um, there's a lot of people out there who don't eat as many carbs, but it doesn't work for me. So I make sure that I'm just eating regularly, as I normally would any other week, fueling for my week. Everything that I've been doing the previous 8 to 10 to 12 weeks, making sure I'm staying hydrating, staying disciplined. So if some people have to kind of force themselves to have a water bottle next to them and make sure that they're sipping on it, mixing that with electrolytes. A lot of people make the mistake of overhydrating without electrolytes. You want to make sure that you're mixing that up, because it's really important to have electrolytes as you're going into this race and replenishing those glycogen stores.
Would you
Um,
do electrolytes through the week leading up? Like I do it after runs and
Absolutely.
before and
Yeah,
after runs, but you would
100%.
Okay. So even
I'll
Wait,
just
do it
like when you're
before
drinking
runs
water
and after runs and
and just
throughout the day.
throughout the day. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't do that
yeah,
as much, but I do it after, before and after runs.
and I think we're talking about things like scratch and
Yeah.
noon,
Liquid
not
IV.
not huge vats of sugary Gatorade. Those are fine on race day.
exactly.
In fact, they're good on race
Yeah.
day. You want that extra sugar, but day in and day out, it's probably too much. The other thing that I really rely on, and I've been steering people to, is Morton, which is kind of spelled Martin, Maurten. They have gels, which some people love, some people hate. I like them because they don't require water to activate in your stomach. We can talk about race specific next, but the pre-race stuff, they have a powder. Um, they have two versions. They have the 180 and the 320. It's just basically double the amount. But if I will do on for a Sunday race, I will do um, a bottle of 180 on Saturday afternoon, and then I'll do a bottle of Morton pre-race, even if it means 4 a.m., whatever. And that's giving you a good base store. Now, again, you have to have done what Joe said, which is you can't just have had water for 4 days before that. I mean, you need to be building that and topping all that off all week. But it's a really good way to boost everything right before the race.
That is a powder that you put with water. Just
Correct.
a,
And
okay.
it's actually the only one that is a very specific ratio, 500 milliliters to the powder, or it
Hmm.
doesn't sort of, I don't know, crystallize
Yeah,
correctly, or
yeah,
something that I
hmm,
don't really understand, but
yeah.
it you have to do it right.
Okay, interesting. I'll look into that. Yeah, I'm like, I think my mind, I'm gonna pretty much eat the same. A lot of protein, a lot of eggs, a lot of cottage cheese and fruit. I'm gonna add a little bit more like vitamin C and fruit just to kind of up my. I don't want to get sick. Add more vitamin C and maybe add some like beets, that potassium in, bananas, beets, just different some vegetables to kind of ramp that up. But yeah, I don't
You,
plan on
a
changing
lot of
much.
people will talk about reducing fiber in the couple days before, just to make sure their stomach, and then shifting, make sure it doesn't upset your stomach, and then shifting from whole grains to whatever, whole grain to white bread and rice and things like that the day and two before, just simpler carbs that break down
Hmm.
easier. And so
Yeah.
I ascribe to that. I don't know how much the science does. I think the science supports it. And so you're getting away from the heavier and the more fibrous and into the simpler carbs.
Have y'all ever had to take a shit on during a race, or
Yes.
have you?
Yes.
Okay, Porta
Yeah.
John.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, to me, it's something that isn't talked about enough. I think this
Here we go.
deserves more attention.
Big hitters only.
But there's probably rarely a run where I don't have some sort of bowel issue that needs to be solved for. So you kind of strategically plan a lot of your runs where there's porta potties or where there's bathrooms that you can use. But it's inevitable. If you run enough,
Yeah.
it's going to happen at some point.
You'll be the bear in the
Ida.
woods. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's definitely.
Exactly.
I mean, when I was 35, never a problem. Now that I'm 53, it's pretty much, I won't say daily, but it happens. But
It's
rate
Like,
common.
but race know that I have to find somewhere to do it, to take a crap, for sure. But race day, I mean, you usually, so you've got a little bit of nerves,
yeah.
you hopefully can expel in the porta john before the start line, and just basically hang on and not need to do that again, because you don't have a ton of food in you. I mean, you should have had breakfast, but you don't have a ton of food in you, and you don't need to do it during the race. But if you do, you do. And you can't really, I mean, there's not much you can do about it. Ironically, I see more women with crap down the back of their legs than men. I mean, people will just do it in their pants. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
honest to
During a
God,
run.
it's in a race. I see more women like that than men. I don't know why.
So,
They're tougher than us.
I mean, will y'all go to Porta John during a marathon? I mean, that kind of sucks. It messes up your pace, right? Like, it's got to,
Sure, it does. I've done it
yeah.
one time. Knock on wood. It was in the New River marathon, and no, it was not a porta john. It was in the woods. It's a very small race. I was probably 2 minutes behind the second runner, and I was probably 2 minutes ahead of the fourth runner. So I had time. I was like, I feel like crap. Let's get this out of here. And I pulled over in the woods and I maintained pace. I mean, place.
You,
Yeah.
you
You
might
want to
as
make sure
well.
race day you have enough time in the morning to do to go to the bathroom multiple times.
Yeah.
So you need to wake up early enough not just to fuel yourself, but to do all the business that you need to do multiple times because Alan's right. I mean, you're going to be nervous. There's going
Yeah.
to be logistics. How do I get to the start line? Nerves are going to be high, and that a lot of times it's just going to translate. And you might be caffeinating as well. If you've been caffeinating, hopefully you're not doing it for the first time right before the race. So all that's going to translate into bowel movements. So you want to make sure you have enough time to do that.
We call that a nerve dump in the business. I was a swim coach, and I coached a state champion breaststroker, and I couldn't help him swim. He was way more advanced. I couldn't help him as a swim coach, but I did teach him the nerve dump. So before his big races, I said, "Hey, man, make sure you get in the bathroom, get that nerve dump out of the way." I love getting Judge Alan Baddour talking about taking craps down his pants on a podcast here. Okay, so let's go day before briefly here. I mean, day before Hayes in the barn. Anything diet wise other than the shakeout run that you would have been hydrating, electrolytes, eating a normal breakfast, lunch, dinner. Anything you would change day before, like that Saturday for me? We touched on a lot of it already.
Yeah, I think mostly have no change, but I think the lunch is more important than the dinner. It is not
Okay.
to be skipped. It is not to get stuck in the expo. It is not to get stuck meeting friends and kind of skip lunch or have lunch at 4 and then dinner at 5:30. Have lunch, eat a full lunch. And my go-to these days are more rice based than pasta based, but whatever you prefer. Some carbs, and then that Morton drink that I talked about. Um,
Then once you
Yeah,
go
I would
light,
say.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add on to that. If you're doing, you're going to DC, and you might want to see friends. I've made the mistake before of like, for example, going to Boston and scheduling meetups with friends and just doing a ton of walking
Yeah.
the day before, and also just not really thinking much about the race. So part of that's good. Um, but being on your feet, getting stuck in the expo, spending a lot of time just traversing the city, don't do that. Don't do that. You want to do that shakeout run, but you kind of want to keep it pretty chill for most of the day.
Yeah, that's what I've turned. I mean, UNC plays at Charlottesville, Virginia on that Saturday. And I was like, man, I kind of want to go to that game, but this season, not so much. Um, okay, cool. And then would you go a little lighter on dinner? Like keep it a little bit lighter than you normally would, maybe? No?
I don't know that I'd keep it lighter. I would eat till I'm full. I mean, I wouldn't
Okay.
force things down, but I
Just
wouldn't
just be
put it.
normal, man. I
Yeah,
mean, just it's what you normally do.
yeah,
I usually
Okay.
eat pasta the night before, and and don't stuff yourself. You don't want to feel kind of lethargic and bloated the day of the race. So just eat normally.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's go. Morning of race. We've kind of gone through that a little bit. Let's just go jump into. I mean, wake up. Okay, race is at 7:50. I think. I mean, wake up at what 5:30, 6. Get some food in you. I usually don't eat before that much before runs. I've done some gummies before a run, but honestly, I don't eat a lot. I hydrate a lot, and I bring gels with me and eat those during the. 'Cause I'm waking up at 4:35, 5:30 for these runs. Would you recommend with a 7:50 race, getting something in your stomach, right? But I don't know. I haven't done that yet, so I'm a little worried.
So we got to start with a 7:50 run. Waking up, where are you in relation to the start line?
I'm in George. We're staying in Georgetown, and so yeah, I gotta kind of map that out. So probably 30 minutes to get to the start line.
I guess I'd spend less time about what time you wake up and just back up from start. So if start is
Right.
7:50, 7:50, you want to be at the start line at 6:50. And by the
Okay.
way, you want to be at the start line in a bunch of clothes that you're going to throw away because if you spend an hour shivering, you will have burned every bit of energy that you need from mile 20 to 26. So you cannot be cold. You will throw the clothes away. It's okay. Go to the thrift store this week if you need to. If you don't have things you can throw away, but don't be cold on that morning. It's the worst thing you can possibly do. So anyway,
Mm.
you got an hour to stand in line, to pee and poop, and you just get in line even if you don't need to, and you just, by the time you get there, hopefully you do. You're probably holding some sort of bar or snack and some sort of bottle of whatever, and you just are holding those. And if you end up not wanting them or using them all, you throw them away. So that's fine. But you just bring stuff that you can dispose of. But anyway, so let's say you're there at 6:50. Um, and that means you need to, I don't know, you need half an hour. So then now it's 6:20. So what do you need to do in that hour, in that time before you leave your place? You need to make sure you have all your stuff. You will, if you're wearing a watch that needs charging, you charge it the night before. Your bib hopefully is already on, whatever you're wearing. Like that stuff's all set up. But you gotta eat. I think you've got to eat something. Now I'm not, that may contradict the don't do anything new. But
Yeah.
I do think that it is risky to have nothing on your stomach when you're going to dump a bunch of probably sugary drinks and gels on your stomach. So, my go-to is a bagel with peanut butter. It can be hard to get down sometimes. It's like this is the worst. You're just dry mouth, but you got to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it sucks. Other people do oatmeal, but something, you put something on your stomach. I like coffee. I think it just at least mentally helps my bowels. Whether it actually does, I don't know, but I'm also used to it. But you
Yep.
need to build in time to do those things and have your body work through so that you go to the bathroom before you leave your hotel, and then knowing, like Joe said, you're going to need to go again when you get there.
So what's
Yeah,
ahead?
I think you've got to have something to eat in the
Yeah, yeah.
morning. Now you've got, maybe enough time to start, maybe thinking about what you want to do, but it needs to be something that you can't just show up to the start line and then just start, you eating gels and expect that to get you 26.2 miles down the road. Yeah, I would strongly advise against that, even if it is something new on race day. Um, maybe it's something that you're just used to eating, so it's not a brand new food. You're not, having sushi that before the marathon, but a peanut butter bagel maybe you've had before. So that is really, I think, critical is just getting up early enough to, get that into your system, and just, kind of start to feel relaxed, start to feel, a little bit calm about what's about to happen. And part of that too, I think, is working out the logistics of what you have to do to get to the start line. So you've got to go to Georgetown. I think the race starts in Arlington. So are we Ubering? What time are we calling for the Uber? Do we
Yeah.
expect there to be a big, a lot of traffic, or are we, and just make sure that you kind of have all those details, because the more time, the more you have to, it's like when you're running and you look down at your watch and you're supposed to be running a certain pace, and you look down at your watch and you're like 30 seconds slower than your pace, you start panicking a little bit. So you want to reduce those moments before the race where it's like, oh, I didn't anticipate this, am I going to make it there on time? All that kind of stress and mental load, it just can't be good for the race performance.
Last thing is just, I agree. The last thing to say though is that essentially you're going to think you're going to need more time than you think you need. And the value of that half hour of sleep is minimal the night before a race. You're probably not going to sleep well anyway. You're going to be a
Yeah.
little amped or nervous or whatever it is you're going to be. So like getting up at 4:30 instead of 5 is not a big deal, and it allows you to do all the things Joe just talked about.
Great. Yeah, we'll have all the logistics all mapped out and everything. All right, let's go into the race. Now, I kind of want to hear what y'all do. I mean, I'll tell you my plan. I mean, look, I'm not trying to break some record here. This is my plan. I'm gonna try to do a gel every 3.5 miles, every 30 minutes or so, It's kind of my plan. I've been using goo gels. I like them. They go down smooth. I kind of look forward to them, which is kind of like a, you get that energy. They work for me. I've hydrated at the 10-mile mark of my 20-mile runs, but I've never done in race hydrating. I don't run with a bottle. I don't run with the hip things. I think people run with hip things look very stupid. Um, so I haven't. I plan to hydrate during the run. I don't even know how that works, and I plan to just take as much as I need and stop a lot and like wave to people and take my gels and kind of take my time and make sure I'm hydrating and fueling. Is there anything you would change with that? I'm also additionally here. My plans are run about a 9:30 pace for the first 15 miles and keep it between 9 and 9:30 for the first 15 miles and then kind of see what happens after that. I'm gonna get slower at 18, 20. That's kind of where I've always kind of hit a mark, but I've done 15 at a very sharp 9:30 pace pretty consistently now. So I feel good about that. It's just I know once I get to about 18, it's gonna get tough. I'm just gonna hold on and see what happens. Anything you would suggest there for a very amateur marathoner that you would adjust, change, or think about to help me get through? What miles are the toughest for you, maybe? Where should I really focus on getting ready for mile 18 or getting ready for mile 22? Anything there? Let's go with Joseph first. Let's
Yeah, I
hear
was
from
going
the
to say,
sweats
Joe,
first.
yeah.
Yeah, lead from the front.
Well, I would say, there's a couple of different questions there. One is nutrition during the race, and one is sort of how do we approach the race strategically. Nutrition wise, you want to, I mean, Alan's kind of said it before, you want to have, gels that you're used to. You want to have a drink that you're used to if you are going to carry a water bottle or two. Some people go double barrel water bottle because they want their drinks to get them so far. They don't want to rely on the drinks on the course. But you've got to practice that beforehand if you're going to do that, because it is a different run than just being completely without water bottles. You also should practice getting the gels out of your
Mm-hmm.
shorts. Know which
Yeah.
shorts you're going to wear on race day. Know that you need to kind of unzip it this way and pull it out, and how it's going to feel. You need to feel like you're going to be able to do this seamlessly on race day. So, and in terms of, there's a cadence to kind of taking these gels too. I think, you don't want this to get away from you during the race. So you want to start fueling pretty quickly. I start usually after mile 3. I'll have a gel at say 3, 6, 9, maybe not exactly that. And then I'll kind of, if I'm not carrying a water bottle, I'll have, water at, 4, 7, 10, something like that as the race goes on. So something to that effect. So it really is something you need to kind of disabuse yourself of this notion that you've already fueled and you can just make it to the finish line. 26.2 miles is hard. It doesn't matter what pace you're running. If you're running 26.2, it's hard. So you gotta make sure that you've got the fuel to get you there. I think strategically,
Wait, Joe,
the holy grail.
why don't I hop
Yeah,
in
Hop in.
go ahead.
on fuel, and then you come back to you on
Yeah.
pacing. So I agree with all that. I think 30 minutes is perfect. It's actually what I do when I race. Um, and so obviously everyone's pace is different, and so the mileage may vary, will vary, and that's fine. But I think the
Yeah.
time is really the thing to focus on um, there. I will tell you that my reading suggests that goo requires water in your stomach to activate. And so my suggestion is to figure out where those water stations are and do some math on where you think the 30-ish minute, 1 hour minute, all that stuff is going to be, so that you take your gel as you're coming up before the water station at mile 3. You've eaten it, and then you go over and you get a cup of water and you drink it. I will tell you that drinking water while running, if you've never done it, will probably be the hardest thing you'll do. So you'll either grab the cup, do everyone else on the course a favor, and move away. Don't just stop right there. Basically grab the cup, run through the rest of the station and over to this one side or whatever, and then drink it. But what people do is they V cup the cup. You know what I mean? You V it, and then if you're doing it while you're running, you V the cup, drink it, and then toss it. Anyway, that's actually worth practicing because it's hard to do
Yeah.
to gulp while
Yeah.
you're breathing and running, or just give
Yeah.
yourself 10 seconds to pull over and drink it.
This
And
this
I
is why you need to watch on YouTube. Watch on YouTube because you saw Ito visualizing the V cup, and I couldn't see it, so I moved my head, acting like I could see it if I moved my head. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
no, that's it. I think that's all I wanted to say about fueling. Here's the one other thing. You say you love goose, and I'm sure you do. By mile 20, you will not love goose anymore. You cannot love goose that long. They are not that good. No substances. It's no knock on goose. But here's my point. It will cross your mind from about mile 20 on to not take that last goo or two goos. You'll think, oh, it's only 3 more miles, 6 more miles. And what I'm telling you is take it before you think you don't need it.
Yeah.
Do it no matter what, because what will happen is you'll get in a hole that you cannot dig out of, and you will suffer that last X number of miles. So take it even though you're, quote, feeling good and there's only whatever left. Take it, take it, take it. Joe, go on with the strategy.
Yeah, one more thing. Yeah, just
Oh,
one more thing
yeah.
on the fuel. I completely agree on the goose stuff. I sometimes will have 6 goos during a marathon, even more. Um, just I don't. It's sort of an insurance policy. I just want to make sure that the fuel's there. And so I don't. I have no qualms about packing a lot of goos for that run. And so you need to make sure that you have the storage for that and how you're
Yeah.
going to do it. And running with it, it's good to practice with that. But anyway, so strategically, running, when I first got into running, I was just balls to the wall every run, full speed ahead. I'm going to gun it. I know I know I can be so fast. Um, and I'm just going to hold on for dear life when I start to get tired, when that lactic acid starts to build up. Don't do that. It's taken me a long time to get out of that mindset that fast early is good. And it's also taken me a long time to get out of the mindset that any given moment is bigger than the marathon. So there are going to be a lot of moments when you're running where you're going to feel really good and you're going to be like, I got this. This doesn't feel hard. I'm going to speed up. Don't do that. Stick to the plan, stick to what you're used to. And in fact, this is the Holy Grail, which admittedly I don't do very well. I've never really done it. But you want negative splits, ideally, if you're shooting for the stars, meaning you start off a little slower and you're getting faster throughout the race. And ideally, by the time you finish, you've met your goal time and then some. So that's really hard to do. It takes some practice. You got to kind of do a few of these, I think, to kind of know what your body's going to feel like at different points in the races and what your mind's going to be telling you at different points in the races. It also depends on the type of course. You need to study the course. Know if you have a big hill at mile 13 or if you have multiple hills from 15 to 21. You need to know that going in
You're talking
because
about
those are likely
Boston.
going to be more challenging miles. Right. Yeah. I mean, you're going to, Boston is kind of the poster child for this, where it's all downhill more or less for the first 16 miles. And then you've got a bunch of hills until mile 21. So, there's going to be different challenges with those types of courses and that type of terrain. Also, the weather. If it's humid, if it's hot, it's going to get to you. You're going to slow down. You're not going to want to. I've lost that battle many times. You don't usually win the battle against the elements in a race this long. So, you're going to, a lot of marathon runners talk about hitting the wall. And what that means is you just kind of, your body starts to shut down. At some point, your body can't go can't do what you're asking it to do. And that's going to be at a different point for different runners, depending on how they trained and all sorts of different things. So that could be sometimes it's, some people say that the race doesn't start until mile 20. It's that last 10K.
Hmm.
That's when you run the race. And what that means is, to me, it means be conservative for the first part of it, and be strategic about when you're going to speed up and start to hit your paces that you want to hit. And then maybe and eventually, if you're feeling good after mile 20 and only after mile 20, then you can speed up, right? Or maybe in that last 5K, if you feel good, maybe then and only then, that's when you let it rip. But the marathon is not about quick spurts of flashes of brilliance or inspiration. It's not like, something you see on Chariots of Fire. It's like this is something, that's why you train 12 weeks for it. It's about steady as she goes, getting the paces you want, and just maintaining sort of a peace of mind as you're doing that as best you can.
I wish I, I wish I could let it speed up after mile 20. I don't see that happening with how I've trained. I'm gonna try to just hold on and just not fall apart after that. But no, it's good. Anything else, Alan? I think
Yeah,
we've
I
wrapped
mean,
up
you,
a lot
I
of things.
agree. I agree. I think the other way to phrase it is you can't bank time. Ooh, that was the fast couple miles. Like, oh, let me do these miles fast because then I'll be when I slow down later. I mean, you're probably right, Ross, that in this race, the way you train, you're going to slow down no matter what. But the
Yeah,
concept is still good. It doesn't mean you were talking, I think, 9 to 9:30s. It doesn't mean, well, let me cheat in a few 8:30s or whatever, 8:30s to nines early so that when I have to walk later, it's just going to put you further back. And I couldn't agree more as far as like the overall experience of racing is 1,000 times better when you negative split because you don't hit that wall and you feel good and enjoy the end. And if you suffer at the end, you kind of don't want to do it again. And you may not want
yeah.
to do it again, and that's fine. The only other thing I'll say is for you or for anyone else who, may end up doing multiple races, I mean, you learn a lot in this cycle, and your body learns a lot in this cycle, but your body also learns a lot in the race. And you can't replace, you can have all the podcasts and talks you want and all the books and whatever else, but until your body goes through it, probably a few times, you don't really know how you react to racing. And so, be that anyway, you may end up saying, "Great, I'll never learn, and I'm done." That's fine, But if you continue on, you'll learn
Yeah.
more and more. Yeah.
And for those listening, negative splits would be like every mile is run faster than the one before it. Uh,
No, no, it's more like front half, back half. I mean,
Yeah.
typically people are looking at the first half marathon as compared to the second half marathon. It's not a progressive
oh,
decrease all the way through. So if your goal is 4.5 hours, something like I'm not sure the math, then that's 2:15, 2:15. So if you ran a 2:20 or 25 and then a 2:10, something like that. That would be a huge negative split. The more likely negative split is on a 2:18 and a 2:16 or whatever it is. Like it's just a couple minutes. And honestly, even split is essentially a negative split because it's so hard to do.
yeah. Great. Let's get. What's your fastest marathon, Alan? What's your best times? Just
My
people
fat
reference the ability we're working with here.
2:38 in New York.
Ooh, 2:38 New York. Joe, what's your fastest?
256 in Wilmington.
2:56. And y'all have both done Boston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
How many
think
times, Alan?
Yeah.
think five, and I think Joe, what, three or four?
I've done 3 times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Are y'all doing it this year?
I am not.
Okay.
No, I did it this year, 2024,
Yeah.
and it was right after a race in Wilmington in February, and I felt pretty good about it, but the weather was really hot, and I just got cooked on the race. I mean, that's the other thing, like for people who are thinking about, I didn't anticipate, by the way, getting into marathons. This was like one of the most serendipitous, miraculous things that's happened to me. Um, I just thought I would go one and done. Let's get a sub 3 time, and then I'd go on and do something else. But when I stepped away from it I realized that how much I liked it. So for those of you who are thinking about not being, uh, a one and done, um, don't don't just shut it down completely for the months after the race. This is you have to kind of do a number of these, as Alan will tell you, and believe him a lot more than me, to kind of improve. It's a long-term project. It's not something where you're going to run one marathon and then you're automatically going to improve in the next marathon. It's a non-linear journey, but the key thing is just stacking those days, stacking those runs, stacking that experience, learning your body and dialing in your nutrition, figuring out what works for you. It's so you're going to be tempted. I'm going to take 3 months and play pickleball just to take time off from running, or I'm going to hit the weight room. That's what I did one time. It's like I'm just going to go get as strong as I can for a few months. That's not ideal. You want to keep running. So if you need it, like when I got into running, I asked Alan to coach me because I didn't know how to run on a track. I didn't know like what the right amount of time off would be. And a lot of people don't. You're just kind of making it up. And you can cobble things together from what you learn online. But you want to find someone who kind of knows, you can get to know you, get to know how you approach things. So get a coach if you need to, if you're interested in doing more than one of these. It's a game changer. It really changes everything until you kind of learn enough where you can start to feel enough, enough to be dangerous to yourself, I guess.
Now, Alan, this is a great
Which is
time to
where I
plug
would
your
classify myself.
Alan, it's a good time to plug your training services.
Well, happy to help anyone that wants, but mostly I just agree with Joe that getting a coach, it doesn't have to be me, is helpful to people. And there's two components to it. One is the training, and the other is the reining. And what I mean by that is pulling the reins back on nut jobs like Joe and whoever else, and F3 who's out there wanting to do everything all the time. And I mean that about myself too. Like we need someone to say, no, you need a rest day today, or you're
Yeah.
having this niggling thing and you need to just back off. And coaches can be really helpful in that as well. But I am
One
happy
of
to
your
help anyone who needs it.
Yeah, if you're really into running or interested in getting deeper into competitive racing, Alan does train people in Chapel Hill and Durham. One of your pupils, Richard Simmons, aka Josh Corral, is doing it. I'm not sure you're still coaching him, but
I'm not.
he is running it. There's
Awesome.
about 20
Great.
of us, 25 of us from Durham and Chapel Hill running it. So,
Oh, that's
all
awesome.
right, guys, this went a lot longer than I thought. We're
Sorry.
over. No, I mean it was great conversations, way more in depth.
We're both pretty interested in the
Yeah.
topics.
I know. It's fun. It's like, and it's always funny talking to Alan because you'll say stuff I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that term means.
I'm sorry. I try not to do that.
No, I think you did pretty good on this, but sometimes I've talked to you and I'm just like, I don't know what that means, man. I'm a very casual runner. All right, we're 60 minutes in. We appreciate you listening. Thanks to Joe. Thanks to Alan. Guys, this is a really good.
Thanks
If
for
you're interested
having
in this
us.
kind of content, we're bringing out different kind of off-topic podcasts. If you like UNC sports, this is a UNC sports podcast as well. Rate, review, subscribe, follow, tell a friend. We're gonna do more stuff like this. I think this is using my marathon as content is kind of how I want this podcast to go. Is to use things in my life as content and try to get people kind of a little bit under the hood on different things that we're doing here. All right, any last words? We all good? Appreciate your time, guys.
Go get them.